Thank you. Hello everyone. Glory to Ukraine. Glory to the heroes. So I'm so happy to tell you about our company, about what we are doing, where we are moving to, and we'll have interesting cases. And also I'd like to add that I'll be joined by Ivanna, and we'll present the first case in Ukraine of the testing of animated content with the help of AI. So it will be very nice for me to tell you lots of interesting information. First, a bit about our company. We are a Ukrainian startup which is dealing with the analysis of the response of the viewers for the video content. So our main task is to analyze the involvement of the audiences, to give the recommendations to the producers, the broadcasters, the TV channels, the platforms, what needs to be improved, who their target audience is, and does the content, if the content has that efficiency which they're expecting for. A bit of business. Of course, creative is cool, but analytics is working. Our company started its way in 2018. Now we have 15 people in the team. Mostly those are developers, and also we have psychocognitive behavioral psychologists, the experts on the content creation, the script writers, and those who train AI. Also we have the representatives in the UK and Los Angeles, and because of the war we have become the international company. We are cooperating as of now with European broadcasters and also the producers of content of animation studios in Germany, the UK, Lithuania and the US. We've tested, for instance, I will tell you what exactly, but sometimes we had to test the whole seasons and to give recommendations how we should develop that further on. So what I'd like to boast about, we have the solution, the technological solution, which was tested by Amazon and NVIDIA. Maybe you heard about the video cards and videos, so we have been cooperating with the engineers of the company, and they were helping us with that. We also have support from Google startups, which is really cool. And from the perspective of our product, we are testing content. How do we test it? We are uploading it to our platform. We are involving our target audience. So we have first some parameters from the producers first. That could be age, that could be the gender distribution, where they live, which TV channels or animation films they are watching. As for the children's audience, in our case, we are involving children. This category is mostly 2 to 5 years old, 6 to 10 years old, and 8 to 12 years old. They are watching content with the web camera on, and we are analyzing their response. How does it take place? This is just a demonstration of the product, how it works. The participants are watching the content with the camera on, and then we analyze their emotional involvement, their attention, the spectrum of emotions, and the direction of their view, of their eyesight. And of course, from the children's content perspective, we can provide services at the stage of the development, where we are using Project Bible, the description, character design. How do I say that in Ukrainian? Yes, the character design, in fact. Then this could be the script, the storyboards, and previous seasons of the project. At the level of the post-production, we test pilot episodes, just casual episodes, and again we can test the full season. And during the marketing stage, we test trailers, promos, and posters. And here we are speaking about children, right? So we'd like to see how they react, how they respond. When we analyze children, again, this is about engagement, attention, interest, empathy, emotions. We are creating the heat maps where they are looking at, and this is a bit of fun, how children can react, and AI analyzes them. This is how it looks like. Why is that important? Children cannot be surveyed. We understand that, right? It is hard to get information from them, and for children it is important to study their behavior. Mostly I can say that we are now becoming partners Yeah, like this. We are becoming partners with the British, and when the famous researcher tells us, I'm searching for that for 5 years already, because mostly I'm observing each and every child, how they respond. I record that, and honestly speaking, when I saw the data, his data, which he provided, we did it 3 times better. And this is really pleasant, because we are a Ukrainian team. So, of course, as for what's important here, the audience is important, so here we have the opportunity to involve the audience of the client. Those could be local agencies, and also we have international panels among our partners who provide us access to the audiences. So mostly we are using in the sample from 50 to 200 families where the children are watching content and their parents are asking the children about the content and filling the forms at our platform. So, a bit about the cases, about the tested cases and of the episodes. We are analyzing the concepts in details, comparing them with the references. We'll speak about that later a bit. We are analyzing the dynamics of the attention and attention span, in fact, because when it's not interesting for the children, they will not watch it. And it's very hard for us to force them. We are analyzing them through their parents. The user experience, what they buy, what they purchase, where they go, what they watch, it helps us to create the portrait of the audience. And I would say that we have a unique development. Why is it unique? It is very hard for the children, just to test animation content when it has already been produced. It's not just hard, it's hard to provide any recommendations. And to implement recommendations, because the budgets will not be changed, in fact. And what's the issue? We need to provide the recommendations at the very early stage, when we just have the script or the concept and storyboards. Only there we can provide the recommendations and sometimes save the project. We provided the X-ray approach, which allows us to take the project Bible, the script or episodes, and then according to that we analyze our characters. We have many characteristics which allow us to understand whether this character will resonate with our target audience. We define the storylines. We may say this is the arc of our protagonist and antagonist and where they intersect. And we also have a separate block of scene analysis, types of scenes, because again we had an important case with German production when one procurer didn't want to buy the TV series with the price of $7 million, because just one comment, too much of talks. And they came to us and they said, we need some evidence base why children will really watch it. And we began to develop this concept of testing, where we look scene by scene, episode by episode, and we look at the dynamics, the ratio of the scenes, the comparison of the scenes, what can be adjusted at the editing phase for the involvement to be rather high. And also we analyze humor and age fit. Why? Because, depending on the age categories of 2 to 5, 5 to 6, or 8 to 12, those are different people already. And even in the category of 2 to 5 years, the development of the children can be different. Sarcasm is understood since 10 years, irony since 8 years. So it's very important when the script writers are writing jokes, they should have this age fit for the audience. We also have aggression as a parameter, and that's interesting because aggression can be on the face, in the phrases, in the words. We can use some unreasonable noise which can lead to aggression, and we pay attention to that when we analyze content for the audience of 2 to 5 years old. We also have emotional coloring, where we forecast emotional response and the involvement of the audience, because in fact any content is just the set of stimuli or incentives. So it's important to control the mood, the state, all of that is intersecting and interwoven. We're also analyzing edutainment. This is one of the points which we'll tell about later, and where you can train something, you can tell something, you can introduce certain senses for children to be focused and developed. But I can tell you that we had a case with the US when we tested the whole season, and there we had the combination of jokes and educational material, which was, let me rephrase, some important moment when the character was saying some wise words, and the raccoon was just retching. Well, it seemed to be funny and interesting, but the importance of the information was just, in fact, at the zero level. The child cannot instantly change the dynamics to the action, so this information will not be perceived. So we give the recommendation from the perspective of the balance between educational effect, which can be increasing or decreasing, and humor. And the last point is what we were working on actively is the benchmarking system. Now our objective is to create and to process 40 most popular shows, which will allow us and our customers to compare their content with the successful series, with the popular episodes. Here we are moving to the Pig Peppa and Bluey. What did we do? We created our system according to the text and video. We analyzed, in fact, in each of the TV series, we analyzed 3 seasons, the pilot episodes and the most popular episodes. What did it allow us to do? It allowed us to understand what's the balance of the parameters which we just saw in the list. And when we have the request and we'd like to test the content, we may say, oh, for instance, which rhythm you'd like to do that with. And the requests are done in the following way. For instance, we'd like to be similar to, if we take the audience of Peppa the Pig, but we'd like to add some style of Bluey. Then we take these 2 types of content and compare. And what we can see then, there will be lots of flesh. Look. We are operating the data. Maybe it would seem a bit dry, not interesting, but still they hide lots of interesting information. So we can instantly see that, for instance, we have the balance between humor and aggression, positive and negative emotions. If you can see, this is the same scale of Peppa Pig above and Bluey down here. So the balance of positive and negative moments is drastically different. And also we have the episode, the most popular episode 49, where we have 70, in fact, jokes, which is super oversaturated. So just to see that, this imbalance of jokes from episode to episode, we can also see what's the difference between the most popular episodes and other ones, the comparison of aggression. For instance, if Peppa the Pig is not aggressive at all, then Bluey has lots of aggressive elements. And it can take place when they, for instance, have mean faces or they do something bad. So it gives more life, but still it is not the cartoon after which the baby, the child, will go to bed and will be calm and quiet. So we need to balance. So as for the positive emotions, more or less they are similar, but as for the negative emotions, Bluey is much more reflecting the negative emotions. And this is how it looks like. What do we do? Mostly we are analyzing the script. We start from below. We define what is taking place, with which characters does it take place, what's the reflection of this emotion, and then we are aggregating this data to create the palette, where our cognitive behavioral psychologist and the expert on the content analysis can make certain conclusions. All of that is automated, so if we have the customer with the season of the series, in a week and a half, we can fully analyze his content. However, in the classical approach, I may say that it could take half a year. And the business cannot wait, so we need data. As for the character analysis and the characters themselves, we are analyzing, in fact, the changes from season to season. What can be changed? Like the balance of positive emotions and negative emotions. And what's interesting, we have such parameters like empathy for children and empathy for grown-ups. This is where what can the children understand and be compassionate with, and the parameter which is very important now, all of that is created to sell merch, right? Merchandise. And who is buying merch? The parents. So it's important that the parents should like that as well. They should have some emotional connection with it as well. So in this case, we can see that if, for instance, Peppa Pig has not that many situations, episodes, moments where the parents can feel empathy, then as for Bluey, if you can see this column over here, this is the level of Bandit, who is the father, and this is the Bluey, and as for Chili, she is the mother. With the mothers, by the way, in this series, it's always problematic, because you cannot make jokes of mothers. So you can instantly compare empathy for adults between two shows, how it changes. So now Bluey is a phenomenon in the world. This is the Australian production, and this is the BBC and Disney brand. So they really love it, and in fact, even in TikTok and Facebook, in Reels, you can see how the parents with their children are watching Bluey, or the dogs love to live through Bluey episodes. I advise you to pay attention to that. The animation is cool as well. When we provide comparison of these characters, we understand who is speaking and how much is speaking, who potentially in the future should be cut out. So this is the analytics which allows the producers to take well-weighted decisions. And what I mentioned about co-viewing, interesting data as well. If we can see that in Peppa Pig in season 1 was 0, Bluey had 15 moments, where the parents potentially will be involved as well. This is the quality imbalance. So it's a challenge for Peppa, because it's very conservative, and Bluey is a modern family with reflections of and demonstration of the challenges for the adults when they have children. So it can also give the effect of training for parents, or at least you could see that you are not alone and you have the same issues as the parents of the dog, the protagonist. An interesting point is when we are moving to this last part, this is the content testing with audiences. When, for instance, we invite families where they are watching with their laptops, the children are watching the content, we analyze them, and the parents are asking questions. And here we'd like to tell you about our case. Together with the PLUSPLUS TV channel, we had a very interesting research. Ivanna, I'd like to give the floor to you now. Ivanna Naida, producer general of the niche TV channels of 1+1 Media. Good day. Good day. I'm Ivanna Naida. I'm the representative of PLUSPLUS in this case, so we came to Oleksiy with the request to test our new product. Will you tell? No, it's your turn. That's enough from me. I will tell about the outcomes. So, the channel of PLUSPLUS, I don't know whether you heard about it, so This is the best animation children's TV channel of Ukraine. We have a cool procurement of content, and we have the line of our own production. Our own production, this is our social mission. Each product bears some senses. And it's hard to compete with Disney, with Nickelodeon, and all of our greatest channels, because for us it's important to what the content is about, and how is important as well. This is the line of our own production. How do I use the clicker? So, obviously we provide the researchers on a permanent basis, we conduct them. This is the main thing what we are basing our choice upon. The first of all is the TV panel, obviously, because we are selling using the TV panel, and this is the widest knowledge about the audience. TV panel, if you're interested in a nutshell, which information does it provide? Who saw it, how much, what's the age, what family, which village or settlement, what's the welfare of the family. We know about the viewer as much as possible. The only thing, we don't know why he or she watched it or did not watch it. We only know when he or she was watching or not. To answer the question why, all of the TV channels for adults and children, they conduct focus groups. And Oleksiy is totally right in this case, because I'm the person who is behind the glass during the focus group and reading the emotions of the children. Then we can guess whether the child is happy or sad. But what's interesting that these focus group, those people behind the glass, are me, the brand manager, the marketing director, the animator, and the film directors, and each of them are reading their own reaction, which responds or corresponds to his or her perception of the film. After the focus group, we can quarrel for hours, what they liked, what they disliked, what was fun or not. In a nutshell, this is a very nice thing to do, but it's not that informative. It's not as informative as what was offered by Oleksiy. And it's obvious that we have our own characters. Why did we go to Oleksiy? First of all, it's interesting. We can compare. That's why we combined our works. So those are our characters which changed their appearance. They had hands and legs, because before they were shapes only, and we took a very complicated topic like useful prompts. That is our new project, which we will do together about the post-war topic, and the main task is to give the answers to the children for the questions which they pose for themselves, and sometimes they cannot come to the parents with those questions. Very frequently. We have already 3 seasons of pre-war useful tips or prompts. We were speaking about, for instance, if there is a little baby, a new baby in the house, and you're pissed off by that, what do you do with that? Or simple questions. If you are too skinny or too fat and you are not sleeping enough, I'm not the one who invents the topic. We have a very nice psychologist for that, Svetlana Rose, if you heard about her. So she invents the topics, and she is a very famous children's psychologist in Ukraine. So now we'll create the TV series about the post-war topic. For instance, there is the child whose father did not come back from the front line, or you came back from emigration, and so on. Very complicated topics. We have a psychologist who is just adding topics, what the child needs to know about that. When we have the script writer who is trying to embed it into the script and to add something fun, some jokes, some tags, and all of that. And then Oleksiy comes, who personally, for us, for the whole team of ours, he really gave us a lot of new understanding about this animation, which we would never get in the focus group, because the focus group, the children, when they leave the focus group, and their parents are in the neighboring room, as we are the commercial channel, so we are working for the parents mostly. This is the secret. So when the children leave, they say, the movie, the cartoon was just perfect. I loved everything. I understood everything. The only thing which showed their real emotions when you ask them, will you advise your friend to watch this cartoon? And very often they said, well, so of course it was good, but I will not recommend it. Well, of course I'm exaggerating a bit. So, we wanted to get to know the assessment of our characters in the new design, the perception and understandable plot, and the emotions or after the viewing. Because in spite of the topics being very complicated, still after the cartoon, you need an opportunity to go to bed and to sleep after that. So what we tested, our pilot episode, and we did it before the war, it was about the mistakes. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. It was not that complicated, but still it was interesting. I will tell you about the conclusions. Yes, tell us about your conclusions. Out of the interesting points, what I remember about, because lots of points were interesting, and I have Katerina and other specially trained people who are digging out the interesting points. But what was interesting for me? Katya is our brand manager, by the way. Okay. So the children, whatever the psychologist wants, maybe the psychologist wants to give 8 useful tips, the children are perceiving 3 only. So we are trying to rewrite all of the scripts for 2 or 3 main points which they need to remember, though they can be too numerous. And also, the children like more the triangle because she's a girl, and they don't like the ring and the square because they are being bullied, and the square one is just dumb, as they say. But in fact, those characters were not invented by us. They were invented by our psychologist. We had every image precisely described, and every child should recognize himself or herself in the character. So the boy who is not skinny knows that he is not skinny. But it would be nice that some character in this animation would tell him how to live with that. So what shall we do? We'll definitely decrease the number of topics, and we will definitely love the square and the ring characters more. That's in a nutshell. Thank you so much. And then we will watch how it looked like. Several points. The audience was 4 to 8 years old. So we had preschool children and just the primary school. It's a challenge because in fact those are 2 different groups, and as you can see since the very beginning, this is how the characters looked like before and after redesign. So we had a complication of the shapes. They have become more complicated and more interesting. And what did we find out? That for the category of 6 to 8 years old, it's very important to make the visual complications, to make it harder and more group dynamic. Definitely we validated that the new characters will be working for the target audience, which is really cool. And it's always important, especially the challenge for the TV channel is when you have a favorite character and you're changing him or her. You need to validate that. When we are testing, just for you to understand our indicators, we are analyzing the involvement, we are analyzing the positive and negative emotions, and the response of the children, and of the parents as well, but in this case the children. So, the first thing what we did, we showed the new characters. We had a certain order, and we looked at how different age categories perceive the new characters. And of course, we had the voiceover, what those characters are, a short intro about them, and then we could see they like the triangle, the involvement is high. where the indicator is white, the involvement is low. Again, they like the triangle. As for the square, not that much. As for the ring, they don't like that at all. The empathy is coming back. Then we have the increase of the involvement when our characters are together. For instance, 4 to 6 years old, we can see cool dynamics. It is working on them. As for 7 to 8 years old, well, could be better, because the characters are simple visually. And for this age category, they need to be more complicated. What did we do more? First, we are testing the first stage, and then after they watch the episode. So the likes of the triangle increased, and the likes of the ring went down. So that's what we need to work about on what Ivanna just mentioned. As for the visual shapes, we can see that the highest involvement was where that was the story about the group, or where the dynamic in the frame was interesting. For instance, when our square was a detective, they had a whole narrative about that, which was interesting. So the audience liked complicated shapes, and our recommendation was to decrease close-ups and to fill the frame with more details, a bit more tables. What do we do in this case mostly? When we have analysis of arcs, we are dividing the content into acts. We define what the stories are in each of them. And here you can see which character was in the frame, and then the types of the episodes. It could be the conversation with the demonstration, the conversation with the action, just the action, the transformation, and here we also calculated the jokes. So we can see that the involvement of the square one, he was in the active role. So he had the biggest number of episodes with actions. And as we are calculating humor, it can be aggressive, it can be affiliative, or self-humiliating, or self-supporting, well, depending on the decomposition of the script. So we may say which types of characters and which type of humor is inherent to this or that character. Then we have the attitude towards the character and the episode itself. What you can see here. Interesting points. As Ivanna mentioned, in this episode, the task was to provide us with information, to train us, to teach us. The peculiarity of this episode is that it consists of 2 blocks. The material was complicated. The children of 4 to 6 years did not perceive it. They actively had negative emotions. It was too hard for them. But visually, for instance, we can see that 7 to 8 years old had low involvement, but they had empathy. Do you know what it witnesses about? That they are listening, they are interested, but they are not interested in the visual materials. It's too simple for them. So we can instantly say about the call to action recommendation, what needs to be done with the script, with the animation, with the narrative, for these 2 segments, the main segments, to have the higher involvement. And what else would I like to add? That it was nice to show it to you and to tell you about what we are doing. And it was nice to feel that we are in Ukraine and doing and introducing such innovations which the world uses, so we need to be proud. So thank you, Ivanna, that you joined us today. That was very nice. I would be happy to answer your questions using the mics. What's the technology of the assessment of the dialogue? Okay, what do we do in our case? We analyze. We select the episodes, and then we define the text. We convert the sound into the text, but separately we also define the tone of voice. Yes, it is included as well. It is included, really. This is the comprehensive assessment. The inputs are the image, the text, and the sound. In this case, we have the psychologists, and we are working with the Project Bible. We are decomposing that, and then, in the future, what are we doing? We would like to use the generative networks, generation networks, for the problematic issues to offer some of the options. And secretly, I'd like to tell you that the next 3 years we will train synthetic audiences to test the content without the people. Yes, we need data for that. And we need to collect data for that. Oh, there are 15 of us. Since the end of 2018, we existed as a startup. As for this case, mics, please. So still, the research is, first of all, to communicate with the customer, and it takes the biggest amount of time. We collect the information for about 3 to 5 days, depending on the type of the audience, and then a day or two to provide the final report. Why can't we make jokes about the character of the mother? Why can't we make jokes with the mother? Okay. First of all, because of respect. And it is not acceptable in the culture, for instance. Any gags or visual jokes or even kind of mocking, we can have jokes with the mother. And we had some interesting points about that. But to have such a direct response, it is unacceptable. We try to avoid that. Out of what we see, where the main character is the mother, this is one of the potential development for the IP with this focus for some studio, but we need to look through the opportunities, different opportunities. It depends on the precision, but as we compare with the benchmark has the final story, so it's possible. Any other questions? Could you please tell, artificial intelligence is used only to read the reactions, right? No, not only. Because what you are saying is the classical analytical work of the human being, right? No, not only. Everything starts with the human being as the person who works at the Polytechnical Institute. I may say that we are automating those processes. We are on the way. And as we have the verified protocols, we collect the data. And I may say that if in 2018 we started to train the networks on the analysis of the responses of the viewers, we had the content unit who are mapping the data. Mapping the data is done manually. That's what I'm telling about. It's not done by AI, it's done by a live person. Well, to train any model, you still need data. And this data mapping is done by the people. There are some of the points when you create synthetic data, there are some points when you can automate it and use other models of artificial intelligence and develop the data. And in our case, in the transition, I may say that in 70% of the work it is automated. Вони починають діалоги без мікрофонів, Дім. Я до тебе не можу достукатись. Ну як це? Наприклад, зараз. We have the idea, we have the case, and what do we generate? Look, so far we'll do that, but soon. That is why we need the benchmarking of the system. In 2 or 3 years. Because this is the children's content. Of course, we have the TV series and episodes and films. We collect the data. So for the children's content, we spent a year. And last year at ABC, that is the conference in Amsterdam, we came up to, a producer of animation content from Lithuania came up to me, and he asked whether we can test the animation. And I answered, we can test the animation on the children when it is finalized, but when it is finalized, any corrections are too expensive. So we developed the approaches to have the early stage development. That is how we came to the Bible of the character, to the scripts, storyboarding, and the content itself, or the pilot episodes, which are still at the early stage. And it leads to the incredible effect for the creators and producers. Any other questions? How do you check the storyboarding? I may say that storyboarding is checked and tested on the children. There are cases in the US, and they perceive it there. We need more sound there, of course. The balance between the data of children and our X-ray, we are closer to the category of X-ray. When we make the conclusions, we are more focused on X-ray still. But when you have storyboarding, you also have characters. In some animation, in the concept, they exist, so you can test them as well. So depending on the content, we will not be able to test the feature film. There's no sense in that. As for some interesting points from the narrative, it's like a comic book, to read an art book. For instance, we have negotiations with PBS Kids, and the testing of books is planned, or visual art books. And it also gives certain response. But what's the correlation between what the children see, the final cartoon, and the storyboarding? What is the correlation? I cannot tell you. We need more data. We are just the beginners. So whether you can trust the data, as for the efficiency, we don't know. Our task is to accompany the customer at each of the stages, then to collect the data and to see where we were more efficient, what was working, what was not. This is the accumulation of data. And I don't want to say that storyboarding is 70% or anything more precise. But if you check the script, how do you do that? We don't check the script on the children, we decompose it at our X-ray. So thank you everyone.